welcome to the channel. In this video I'm going to show you how to paint two miniatures from Core Space by Battle Systems, Devastator and a Harvester. We're going to look at three different undercoating techniques and using contrast paints to finish your miniatures quickly and to a good standard, as you can see from the examples here. To start with, you need to prepare your miniatures. It's a good idea to give them a clean in warm soapy water, just using a toothbrush to get rid of any casting residue. If any of the miniatures are wonky, apply some heat with a hairdryer and you can just move them around, leave them to cool and they'll set fine. Another stage of preparation is to prime your miniatures. I'm going to do one in black and two in grey, just brushing the primer on. You can use an airbrush if you've got one. So this is going to be our simplest miniature. We're going to start by building up that grey layer and getting it a little bit lighter using a dry brush and some white paint, just brushing on the top surfaces as if the light's falling down on there. I'm going to pick out contrast skeleton Horde and brush that carefully all over the miniature. You need to be careful with this. If you let it pull, you get nasty little patches, sort of tide marks and coffee stains. So when you're finished with your main painting, you've got the whole thing covered, you can go back in just carefully like that and pull off any small pieces. If you leave it to dry for too long, you'll end up tearing the paint, so be careful when you're doing this. A little bit of moisture on your brush helps a lot. I'm using black Templar contrast paint here to pick out all the machine details. Legs, neck, back of the body and the spine pieces that come up through the middle. It's a really lovely paint to use, it goes on super smooth. You just need to be careful that you don't go onto any of the areas that you've already painted. And next to finally for this miniature is the base. I always use a plain grey base, in this case P3 Ironhull Grey. A little bit of water in your paint helps it to go on smoothly. You probably need at least a layer or two of this to make it really look nice, and rimming the base right at the end makes it look really good. And that's done. Simple colour scheme, simple miniature. You should get that on your table really quickly. This one's had a coat of matte varnish just to take off the extra shine. So for version 2.0 of the Harvester, we're going to try something different. A black undercoat won't take your contrast paint very well, so we'll build up a couple of colours first. This whole red is a really nice shadow colour and it's going to work well with that skeleton bone. You can see here, brushed all over. But that on its own again won't work very well, so I'm doing a really heavy dry brush of white and focusing on the right hand side and the top of the miniature, working all around to try to find areas where the light would fall. I'm imagining the light is coming from that top right hand side. I want to leave the underneath surfaces and I want to leave some of the left hand surfaces to pick up the shadow. But I don't want too much of that dark brown because it will really overpower the contrast paint. Alright, that's the base coat done. You can see it's now ready for applying contrast paint over the top. Skeleton Horde again, just to get that nice beigey colour for the Harvester. Be careful to avoid pooling, and you can see as you're brushing it on, it's covering up the nice light areas and picking up the shadows from underneath as well. Next stage after this is to get the darker colours on. And for the darker colours, we're back to contrast black Templar. So pick out all the metal details, all the pieces which join the armour panels together, and be careful not to get that contrast paint onto the beige armour. It'll be really difficult to clean that off. If you do drop it on, a wet brush will allow you to pick it off straight away if you're really quick. So for version 2.0 we're going to add in some extra details. We're going to go for the lights on the body, the lights on the weapon and the eyes too. We're going to start by basing all of these in white paint. Now it's not white paint straight from the pot, it's got a little bit of water mixed into it. That small amount of water will allow the paint to just pool naturally in the hollows and the holes when I'm applying it. very, very carefully, just with the tip of the brush, pulling it around. If you do make a mistake, you can pull that paint off quite quickly if you use your thumb, your finger, or you could also use a clean wet brush to get the same effect. And with that base coating done, it's time to add the glow colours. I've got two blues here. I'm going to use the medium one rather than the light one. I'm just filling in straight over the top of where I put those white base coated sections. And it's the same for the eyes, this time a really bright red colour, right on the tip of the brush, tiny bit of water to help it flow, and you should just be able to drop it in over the top of your white undercoat there. The final stage for this model is some varnish to take off the shine. I love AK Ultra Matte. Sometimes I'll put that over another spray on varnish just if I want a really strong finish. And with that, our Harvester 2.0 paint scheme is complete. If you like this one, give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments if you prefer this one or the original one. The Devastator is one of my favourite miniatures to paint and least favourite to encounter on the table. We're going to try the shadow paint scheme that we did on the Harvester 2.0 on this one, but instead of the brown we're going to use dark sea blue from Vallejo. The reason I'm doing this is because there's a lot of green in there, and green being a complementary colour to red, so when we put the red over the top of this it should mix together and give us that nice brownish dark red shadow colour. As you can see, I'm brushing it in a little bit less liberally than I did with the Harvester, and that allows it to blend nicely with the white portions on the top. You can see there the shadows underneath looking really dark. So to make sure that that contrast paint on the top really comes out bright and vibrant, I'm going back over with some white, just like we did with the first Harvester, just picking up the top surfaces and making sure that I've got some nice vibrant bright edges. Black Templar is the armour colour, or the underneath armour colour, so I'm going to go and do that before, just painting it in exactly the same as both the previous models, picking up all of that mechanical detail. So if you've made any mistakes with the Black Templar, you can go in with a little bit of white paint and clean up those edges. It's also a good idea to go in with the white paint just to pick up the absolute brightest areas on the armour before you go in with the contrast red. So time for the final base coating stage, and that is our Blood Angels red contrast, and that's going straight over the top of all of that undercoat that we put on. And you can see as it's going on, where it's sitting on the white, it's super bright and vibrant, and as soon as it comes onto the darker areas, you get that nice shadow. It's a very strong colour, so be careful not to let it pull. Just around the back, the underneath of the arm, you can see it going on that dark green and getting that nice shade. And that's it for the basic thing. You could leave it like that if you wanted to. You could just go straight into the tabletop with a bit of basing, but I think it's a good idea now to start picking out some details. This now is Black Templar with water mixed into it, just to make it a bit runny, using it more like a wash there. So with a much finer brush, picking out the details, the armour panel separation. It's important on the head to give that eye something to draw your attention to. It makes it look a bit nicer. And in a second, I'll try to get some of that panel lining onto the arms as well. You can see at the minute they're not very well separated. So there we go, panel lining into the arms, and again, it makes it just look better. You get that contrast between the red and the black, and it makes those armour panels stand out. It's one of the reasons I like this miniature so much. Getting ready now for the final details, and that is base coating where all the lights are going to be. So there's 3 on the chest, and there's the eye, and the weapons, the devastating cannons that it has on its arms. So popping that in with the white with a little bit of water mixed in, and just making sure that this whole area is filled in really clean and white, ready for the blue to go over the top. this time using both the mid blue and the light blue. I'm going to start off with the mid blue and basically fill in all of those areas, anything that I want to be that blue, so the weapons, the glow on the weapons in the middle of the eye. And I'm going to leave the other lights white for the moment, and then come back in afterwards with the lighter one and just tapping that colour in. You can do it while the mid blue is still wet and you get a little bit of a blending effect. To be honest, it's so small when it's on the table, you're not going to notice too much, but if you want to take a bit more time, you can. One dot on the eye and that's done. Whatever basing style you prefer. Again, I'm on my Ironhull Grey, all my core space bases are the same, and then straight after that, getting some AK Interactive Ultra Matte, and that's our finished Devastator. So I hope this tutorial has been useful for you. 3 different ways of painting some of your basic miniatures from the core space game. Next time we'll have a look at some highlighting, some extra details that can really make those minis pop.